Hi everyone, I'm Wendy and today I'm showing you easy pantry meals with 6 ingredients or less. I'll have the written recipes linked in the description box below the video, but really I want you to forget about the recipes. The purpose of this video is to teach you how to cook out of your pantry without the need for a recipe. And the 6 ingredients or less is just to show you that it really can be that simple. So the recipes in this video are simply inspiration. And along the way, I'll give you tips for how you can adjust these to suit your own taste and you can get creative in the kitchen. First up, I have a 10-minute pantry stir fry made with kidney beans, rice vinegar, millet and brown rice ramen, or you could use another whole grain noodle, Chinese stir fry veggies or any other frozen veggie blend, and finally some hot sauce. I'm using homemade hot sauce that I froze in cubes a while ago, but you can use whatever hot sauce you like. Or if hot sauce is not your thing, feel free to leave it out and flavor this up with another condiment. If you use salt in your cooking, you could add coconut aminos, tamari, soy sauce, or miso paste. Or if you stick to an SOS-free diet, you could swap out the rice vinegar for a flavored balsamic. The key is to keep your pantry stocked with your favorites so you can pull a meal like this together quickly. So to make this easy stir fry, I'm starting by heating up a large skillet and bringing a small pot of water up to a boil. I'm adding the frozen veggies to the skillet, and I don't like these large pieces of green beans, so this is just my personal preference, and I'm breaking those into smaller bite-sized pieces. Then, since it's frozen, I'll go ahead and throw my hot sauce in here so it can defrost. I'll cover that and steam the veggies for a few minutes while the water comes up to a boil. Once the water is boiling, I'm adding my noodles. Today, I'm just making enough for me, so I'm only adding 1 block. But if you were serving 2 or more, I would cook at least 2. I'd also recommend using 2 bags of the frozen veggies, but today I only had 1 on hand. Again, I'm trying to show you how you don't have to follow an exact recipe. Learn to work with what you have. Next, I'll add my kidney beans to the skillet, and then these noodles cook really quickly. So after they've cooked for a couple of minutes, I'm using a couple of forks to break the noodles apart. Once they're done cooking, I'll add them right into the skillet. And finally, I'll mix in a little bit of the rice vinegar, and that's all there is to it. Make sure you adjust this as you please. Like I said, feel free to use other condiments, add a no salt seasoning, or if you do use salt, feel free to sprinkle a little bit of that on. And for garnish, you might also add some sesame seeds. Next up, I have a quick lentil soup made with dried French lentils, brown or green lentils would be fine as well, fire roasted tomatoes, farro or another whole grain, a bag of frozen mirepoix blend, which is just carrots, celery, and onions, and some kind of seasoning. Today, I'm using herbes de Provence, but Italian seasoning would be great too. Lastly, I have some frozen spinach. I'm doing this one in the Instant Pot, but you could absolutely cook this on the stovetop. So I'm adding the frozen veggies, a cup of rinsed lentils, about half of the bag of spinach, and then a couple tablespoons of whatever seasoning blend you pick. At this point, I'd also recommend adding a no salt seasoning. I love this umami blend from Local Spicery, which is actually supposed to be like a broth substitute. As I said with the first recipe, make this your own. Use whatever no salt seasoning blend you love, or feel free to add salt and pepper to taste. Then I'm just adding water, but of course you could use broth, and finally I'm adding in the can of fire roasted tomatoes. In my Instant Pot, I'm cooking this on high pressure for 10 minutes, but on the stovetop you would simply cover it and simmer for a minimum of 15 minutes until the lentils are fully cooked, but the longer you cook it, the better it'll taste. Once the soup is done cooking, I'm adding some cooked farro to the bottom of a large bowl, but you could use whatever whole grain you like. And then I'm spooning the soup on top, and just like that, you have a healthy soup ready to go. Another tip for elevating these pantry meals is to add some fresh herbs or a splash of lemon juice. This can take what some people might see as a boring meal to the next level. Let's move on to an easy sheet pan meal. This one uses frozen broccoli and hash brown potatoes, along with garbanzo beans and curry powder. You'll simply add all of the ingredients to a large mixing bowl and stir to combine. If you want, you could include a little bit of the aquafaba, that's the liquid from the canned chickpeas, to act as a substitute for oil. This will also help the seasoning stick. Or you could use a little bit of veggie broth for the same purpose. but I usually find I don't need anything to replace the oil. I can simply roast my veggies and they come out just fine. After everything's well combined, I'll put this on a couple of sheet pans, and I could cram this all onto one pan, but it'll take longer to bake that way. So I'm spreading it out onto two. And I'll bake this at 375 degrees Fahrenheit for about 30 to 40 minutes, stopping halfway through to stir everything around and rotate the trays. The one that was on the bottom will go on top, and vice versa. You could eat this one plain or add whatever condiments you like, such as salsa, ketchup, or barbecue sauce. But I'm going to show you how to make a really quick SOS-free sauce that you can make using pantry staples. This recipe uses canned tomatoes, garlic, ginger, dates, and some frozen cauliflower. I only had riced cauliflower on hand, but any kind of cauliflower will do. I'm using a high-speed blender to mix this up, so to my blender container, I'll add the tomatoes, and then I'm adding the cauliflower, which I've already steamed. I'm using about 3 ounces, which was about 3/4 of a cup. Next, I have 3 pretty large cloves of garlic, but adjust this to your taste. And then I'm going to grate in about 1 inch of ginger. If you're using a high-speed blender, you could just throw a 1-inch piece of ginger in there. But I store my ginger in the freezer, so that's why I'm grating it. And then finally, I have some dates. You can adjust the number of dates based on how sweet you want your sauce to be. I'm using 2 medjool dates that I've chopped up. Again, a high-speed blender should be able to blend the dates easily, but I like to chop them just to give the blender a little bit of a break. And once it's blended, you can use this sauce now. There's nothing in it that needs to be cooked, but I'm going to simmer it for about 10 minutes to let the flavors come together. And then I'll add that on top of my curry, broccoli, potatoes, and chickpeas. You can save this sauce in the fridge to use all week with your other meals, including our next and final recipe for today. I'm making a quick pasta with a can of Great Northern beans, some whole wheat rotini, frozen spinach, and the leftover tomato sauce. You don't need to use this particular sauce recipe. If you wanted, you could simply add a can of no salt added tomato sauce. I start by heating up some water, and once it's boiling, I'll add the pasta. Then I'm adding the beans, spinach, and tomato sauce to a large skillet, and I'll cover that to warm it up while the pasta cooks. Once the pasta is almost done cooking, I'm taking a couple ladles of the pasta water to thin out my sauce and to help it stick to the pasta. Then I'll drain the pasta and add some of it to my skillet. Add as much as you like based on how much sauce you end up making. And then this is ready to go. Again, you can serve it as is, or you could add some fresh herbs. But let me show you one more bonus recipe of a vegan Parmesan that would be delicious on top of this. There are so many ways to make vegan Parmesan, and I don't think I've ever made it the same way twice. Most vegan parm recipes use cashews and nutritional yeast, but I like to switch it up and use all kinds of different nuts or seeds. Today, I'm using a combination of sunflower seeds and pumpkin seeds, but you can use any combo of cashews, walnuts, hemp seeds, pumpkin seeds, or sunflower seeds. Or if you want to lower the fat content, you can also add some rolled oats, which I also did today. And last but not least, it'll need a little bit of nutritional yeast. So today I used 3 tablespoons of seeds along with 3 tablespoons of oats, and I only used 2 tablespoons of nutritional yeast. I blended that up until it was a powder that resembled Parmesan. And you can stop there, but for a little extra flavor, I'm also adding a teaspoon of granulated garlic and a teaspoon of Italian seasoning. I'll blend that again really quickly just to mix it up, and you can keep this in the fridge to use all week. It goes perfectly on top of pasta dishes like this one. And there you have it. That's 4 easy pantry meals. Hit the thumbs up if this video inspired you to get a little creative with whatever you have in your pantry. And I hope this video showed you that whole food plant-based meals don't have to be difficult or take a long time to make. If you're just getting started on your whole food plant-based lifestyle, you might also like this video that I recently did where I showed you everything in my whole food plant-based pantry. As always, thanks again for watching, and I hope to see you next time.